What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Franchise Play, and I got another episode of Ask FP. Forgive me if you hear a little bit of a rumble here. My microphone is doing its own thing right about now, so I want to make sure that we're heard today. So this is, I want to say, let me just double check, make sure I got this correctly. This is episode number 92 of Ask FP, which I think is pretty cool. I appreciate everybody who has watched and so on and so forth. Also, today I wrote two articles. One of them is about Conor McGregor and this crazy thing that's going on. And I understand it's just posturing. He's, as a businessman, he's got to do his thing. But he's saying that if he fights Floyd Mayweather, he wants to get the same amount of money as Floyd. So I put my thoughts on that. And also we got, I did a piece that basically said point blank, it's not too long. I wrote it. I said Seth Rollins deserved to be the cover guy for WWE 2K17. So when you get an opportunity to read those, I'd appreciate it if you did. I tweeted both of them out. So if you follow me at Unique Mazik on Twitter, you will be able to find those without a problem. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the actual questions. I got to try to get into my questions a little quicker because folk get mad, man, if you don't get into your questions quick enough. Man, a dude told me something he was telling me about. He was like, you didn't even get in talk about the questions quick enough. And I'm like, well, bro, can you just chill for a second? Because it is like, can I say hi up in this boy? My man, he didn't even want to let me say hi. I'm like, he just like, start talking right now. Like, okay, bro, we're gonna get into it. All right. So the first, as you see from the title of the show today, that what the question of the week is. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Vince Delgado says, has Derrick, meaning Derrick Rose, done enough to have his number retired by the Bulls? Does he deserve to have his number retired? And would you? This one is, in my opinion, is a pretty easy answer. I absolutely would have Rose's number retired, and that probably is not going to shock many people to hear me say that. But I believe I can back that up, with some logic and something that makes some actual sense, to say. Rose is the first. I mean, he's the youngest MVP in the history of the NBA. So when he, in my opinion, that right there is something that creates a special distinction. That's not an everyday type of an accomplishment. And that to me is something that's worth a great deal to an organization to be able to have the distinction to say that we had a guy on our team who was the youngest MVP in the history of the game. I think that's a big deal. He helped lead your team to the best record in the NBA 2 different seasons. He's a hometown kid, which you cannot avoid. You cannot deny the relevance of that. And in terms of just all-time stats and stuff like that, you may not say it from based off of that, because I think he's 10th all-time in scoring, like 8,000 points, 8,001 points, I think it is exactly. He's like 5th or 6th in three-point shooting, which is kind of shows you the Bulls haven't had a ton of great three-point shooters, because we know that wasn't Rose's best thing. And I think he's like 6th or something in assist. There's no doubt in my mind that without the injuries, he'd been much higher on all of those lists, to be honest. But it is what it is. But I definitely believe that Rose deserves to be to have his number retired by the Bulls. I think that would be a good touch, a nice thing, just a nice overall gesture, period, and appropriate. All right, next question comes from Trash Boat 2K, and he says, did the chase of 73-9 take too much out of the Warriors, and the reason Curry wasn't his regular season self? You know, I'm going to tell you something about that whole thing, right? I'm always wary of saying the reason that a favorite lost was because of something that they didn't do, as opposed to they lost because of who they lost to. And I'll give you an example. And this is totally another sport, right? But I'm going to give you an example. Recently, Joe Rogan was making implying, or saying, wasn't even implying, he was saying it. The reason that Ronda Rousey lost to Holly Holm was because she got too wrapped up in Hollywood. She got too wrapped up in all of these different distractions, things that took her focus away from fighting. But I think to give that type of a reason why someone lost takes away from Holly Holm. Holly Holm is who beat Ronda Rousey. Okay. Ronda had movie roles and things like that against other fighters, but she didn't lose against those fighters. She got knocked out by Holly Holm. She got outfought by Holly Holm. To say that is to suggest that Holly Holm had no distractions of her own. You know, Holly Holm has a husband. She has her own family situations going on. All of that stuff can be a distraction as well. So because Ronda's more famous, she has more distractions. That's just getting too deep into the whole situation. And then coming back to your question, Trash Bo, I'm looking at Golden State first and foremost was down 3-1 to Oklahoma City. Okay. Oklahoma City blew that lead, and the Warriors come back and win 3 in a row. Well, they had a 3-1 lead on the Cavs, and nobody was talking about 73-9 taking too much out of them when they had a 3-1 lead. We were all talking about how, oh my God, this is just, oh God, woo, it was all everything, right? But now when they blow the lead, is it because the long season took too much out of them? So through 4 games, they was cool. But through the last 3, it all fell apart. It just doesn't really make much sense, in my opinion. The Warriors lost to LeBron and Kyrie and the Cavs. That's what happened. The Cleveland had a good game plan, and they had the bodies to give Golden State an issue. They had the long, athletic bigs who could somewhat stick with Steph Curry off of the pick and roll, could stay with him when you get switched off of him and a big gets switched off him. Most of the time, whoever that big is in danger. But Cleveland had the type of bigs that could handle it. Oklahoma City had similar situations, but Steve Kerr made an adjustment towards the end of that series, and it ultimately ended up leading Golden State past Oklahoma City. Against Cleveland, they weren't able to do that, and one of the biggest reasons they were is because Cleveland has the best player on the planet in LeBron James to play the great all-around game that he played, and then also he has one of the greatest scoring point guards in the NBA, who Kyrie, people talk about Kyrie, is Kyrie better than Steph and all that? No, Kyrie's not better than Steph. Steph does way more things than Kyrie does. Did Kyrie outplay Steph in the finals? Yes, but Kyrie had one primary job, and it was to score. And because Kyrie is a better off the dribble drive and penetrate guy than Steph is, but not by much, but he is better. And so I think that allowed him to be a little bit more effective. And also the amount of focus on him was not the same as it was on Steph, just because the dynamics of the way their team is made. So I don't think that 73-9 got to Golden State any more than LeBron not wanting to have this losing record, horrible losing record in the finals, or drop another finals, a second straight finals. Everybody has pressure. Everybody has circumstances that they have to overcome. I can't say one is bigger than the other. You show up, you win or you lose. Golden State lost. It's just that simple. We don't have to try to find a special reason why they lost. They lost 4 games and they could only lose 3. That's why they lost. All right, next question comes from Victor Daniel Torres. And Victor Daniel Torres is, what is Victor saying? If I can get this up on the screen, I'll tell you in a second. Victor Daniel Torres says, in your opinion, from this year's draft, who will be the biggest sleeper? Now, for me personally, I think there's a couple people here that you got to keep your eye on, because I think it can kind of go either way. And I almost hesitate to say this because I know you guys are going to say, oh, you're being a little bit of a homer with this. And that's really not what I'm doing at all. But I really believe that Denzel Valentine has what it takes to really make an impact for the Bulls this year. Now, are the Bulls a playoff team? Absolutely not. Not unless they make a two significant signings in the off season that can help them from a free agent standpoint. Because I don't think that Gasol is coming back, which I don't really want him to come back. And I'm almost 100% positive Noah's not coming back. But I do think that Bobby Portis is a good player. I think Robin Lopez is a serviceable big man. He is. I think that Nikola Mirotic, especially free, if he's given a little bit more freedom, I think, and healthy, I think he can be a good player. I think Doug McDermott's a good player who can really be a solid scorer. I think Jimmy Butler is a very good player, one of the best shooting guards in the league. But I think there's a really big question mark at point guard now, obviously. So what happens there? I think there's a big question mark when it comes to depth. So we'll see. But I think that Valentine, man, has the type of game that fits perfectly with what Fred Hoiberg wants to do. He's smart. He has good size. He can really shoot it. This guy can really shoot the ball, right? And he's also a good passer. So I think he's in a great situation. I do think he's in a great situation. Another guy, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later, is Thon Maker. Now, but Thon Maker may not show you he's a sleeper this year. So that's the thing. It may take him a little bit of time to develop overall, but I really think that that he has a chance to make an impact down the road. That could be something that we like. Wow, and he went 10th. He has that type of upside. If they give him an opportunity to develop at his pace and he isn't rushed, the talent could show. So we'll see what happens. The guy has a really good attitude for the game, and that's going to help him immensely, not to mention being 7'1" and having some skills. All right, so the next question comes from Simon Torvey Sunderland, and he says, winners and losers from the Indiana Pacers, Atlanta, Utah trade. For me personally, I think the big far and away winner here is the Pacers. Is Jeff Teague an elite point guard? No, I think he's right below that tier, but I don't think he has to be. When you're playing with a guy who I consider to be one of the top 6 to 7, maybe top 5 or 6 players in the NBA, and I almost said Jeff George, and Paul George, then essentially what you could be looking at is like a poor man's version. Now, mind you, poor man's version, which means a decreased level, but a poor man's version of LeBron and Kyrie. Because just like Kyrie, Jeff Teague is not a pure point guard that is out there to distribute so much for his team. He's a scoring point guard, just like Kyrie. Paul George is a do-it-all small forward. Not quite as great, obviously, as LeBron, but he's a do-it-all small forward. So that same dynamic and same chemistry can be there with Indiana. Now, did Atlanta and Utah get some assets in the trade? Yes, but the overarching aspect of this trade for me is Jeff Teague being paired with Paul George. I think that's going to work out nicely for Indiana. So I know Simon Torvey Sunderland, who is a Pacers fan, is probably happy to hear me say that. He's hoping that I'm right. All right. The next question comes from Vince Delgado. He says, what are your thoughts on Roman Reigns' suspension? Initially, my thoughts are that's a shame. Now, I don't know the details of it. I don't know if he took a tainted supplement or if he did something real hardcore or what. I don't know, right? It's a shame because for me personally, I'm already thinking the guy doesn't get a fair shake from the WWE universe. He is booed. He can't. I mean, they don't even hardly want to let the dude finish his promo. You know, it's just you guys have heard me talk about how WWE fans are just so out of control. They want to be the show. I'm like, you paid your money for this ticket, and part of this ticket is not just to watch the in-ring action, it's to hear the mic work and all of that. But you're talking so much that and yelling so much and chanting and trying to interrupt guys while they're performing that you're not really even getting your money's worth unless you literally paid your money to be disruptive. So he's already going through that, but now you're gonna have you can bet people are gonna be chanting needle or steroid or PD, something like that. People are going to be chanting. It's going to be nasty. It's going to be interesting to see how the WWE handles that. Are they going to, like kind of like try to censor some of the chants? I don't know, because that even Raw and soon SmackDown is live. So, and it's like I'm thinking on like a 7-second delay. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, it's a shame. That's the biggest thing I can say is that it's a shame. All right, next up, I got Damien Dark, and Damien Dark has a question. He says, do you see Denzel Valentine becoming the key player on the Bulls roster in the upcoming years? Obviously, I do, because here's the reason why I kept this question in and didn't, and because sometimes if two questions or my answer to a question kind of answers another Ask FP question, I'll take it out. But obviously you guys heard me talk about Denzel Valentine. But the reason why I kept this one in is because I don't know how long or how high Denzel Valentine's ceiling really is, because he's not an explosive athlete, right? He is a understand the angles just fast enough kind of a guy, handle well enough kind of a guy. That's the kind of dude he is. So I don't know that that's a really super high ceiling guy. I know that he's coming into a situation where the Bulls really are going to be looking for a second and third scoring option. And I think that's a good situation for a rookie who already knows how to play like Valentine. But going down the road, which is what I think this question is asking, I don't know. I don't really know how far he can go as far as being a Bull in terms of how much can he really help beyond this year and maybe the next two. So we'll see if he's a part of the long-term plans. When I say long-term, I'm talking 6-7 years down the line. So we'll see about that. That's the part I'm not totally sold or sure about. So I got another question from Damien, and this one goes into the WWE realm. And Damien says, do you think Dean Ambrose's champion changes the direction the WWE is going? I think it changes the direction to a degree, but I'm be honest with you, I think the biggest reason why he's a champion now is because Roman Reigns got suspended. I think that was a late change. I read something that said that was a late change because the WWE had learned about Roman's suspension before the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and this was a last change that they implemented. It went over really sweet, so they did a nice little switch, and I believe the fans probably liked that better anyway. But I think Ambrose is going to have a long and successful career in the WWE. He's super over, but I really think he's a lot better as a heel. And I know for a fact that they will probably be switching him back at some time in the next year or so. He's just better as a heel. He was better on the mic with the Shield before they switched good. And because now he just, I don't know, I don't dig him on the mic at all. Just that look he gives and whatever it is he's doing, I don't dig it. But I think the WWE is going in a different direction in terms of trying to promote the young superstars. The thing of it is that there aren't a lot of them that are coming up with more than athleticism and muscular builds. You know, as much as I hoped and wanted for Apollo Crews to be awesome, he don't have a clue on the microphone. He don't have a clue. You know, it's just not coming off well. Neville doesn't have a clue when he's healthy. You know, it's like 30-70 when they come up. 30% of them have something on the mic to go with their in-ring stuff. The other 70% is just a muscle-bound dude. You know, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, and you know, those are the guys that I think that have come up from NXT. Bray, obviously, who have it all. They have the total package. And Sammy don't even have a total package because he don't look the part. He doesn't have a marketable look, but he's good on the microphone, and we all know he's great in the ring. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. So what do we have next here? I got this one coming from Samito, and Samito, he's got a picture. Oh, it was actually a Vine. I'm not going to play the Vine, but he says, what do you think Derrick meant by this, and how do you feel about it? So basically, for anybody who doesn't know what was said in this particular sound clip, Derrick was asked, why were you traded? Or why do you think you were traded? And he said, I don't know why I was traded, but I'd like to tell him thank you. So for me personally, I took that as, yeah, I'm a little salty for being that you're trading me. Yeah, I'm a little bit salty, but I like my situation. I'm blessed to be going to play for the Knicks. That's where I wanted to go if I had to be traded. And this is a new start for me. Here's the thing. I believe, and this is what helps me a little bit as a Derrick Rose fan. I believe that Derrick wanted out of Chicago, but he didn't want to be the one that left. I believe he wanted a new start, but he wanted it to end respectfully. And I don't think this is all speculation. I don't think he feels totally insulted by this trade, but I do think he feels insulted by it a little bit. I think there's some resentment that now, okay, it's almost as if you picked Jimmy over me. And then also, if you look at what the Bulls got back for him, I can guarantee you Rose thinks more highly of himself than what the Bulls got back. And a lot of people feel like, oh my God, that's all the Bulls got back. They traded him for that. I promise you, that was the best offer the Bulls got for Derrick Rose. If you listen to what the national perception is of Derrick Rose, it is not high. People don't think a lot of Rose. I personally think that this is going to be an outstanding year. That's why I wrote the article that said that I put it out there. I guaranteed. I said Rose is going to be an all-star this year, unless he gets injured. Obviously, and that's an if. I believe he's going to be an all-star. I put that out there. I believe that. But people in other people in the national media are not of that same opinion. They're not. So the Bulls are not going to get more than what they got for him. If you think about it, he's in his last year of a contract. He's been injured consistently over the last 3 years. His play has declined statistically. It declined. It has, and this is coming from a hardcore Derrick Rose fan, but his play has declined statistically ever since the MVP season. Okay, so the other teams in the NBA they weren't going to give a bunch of a lot for that, because you don't have any leverage to keep him, because in the final year of his contract, and we're talking about a guy who may never be back to where he was. So from a business standpoint, I understand that. But like I said, Derrick Rose is not a human being if he's not a little stung by this going down. I have no problem with him saying what he said at all. As a matter of fact, and I know a lot of Bulls fans are going to be like, oh my God, about this. But as a matter of fact, when the Bulls play the Knicks, I am rooting for the Knicks. And I'm not rooting for the Knicks because I like the Knicks. I don't like the Knicks. I never have, really, right? I've either disliked them or been indifferent. But I am rooting for the Knicks because I want Derrick to succeed. I don't think the Bulls are a team that's going to be able to contend for a championship. They'll be lucky if they make the postseason. But this next season for me primarily is going to be about watching Derrick hopefully prove all of the doubters wrong. I'm at a point in my life from an NBA standpoint where it's more about players than it is about teams for me. And two people have made it that way. It's Rose and LeBron. I've told you guys countless times, I tend to gravitate to the person that everybody puts down. So you got all these people hating LeBron for really no good reason. So my personality just tends to gravitate towards that type of person if I don't see what it is everybody's talking about. Same thing with Rose. Rose has been hurt. It is not like he hurt himself. It's not. I mean, I've seen people have more compassion for players who continue to get in trouble off the court. I'm talking about getting arrested, smacking a wife, a girlfriend, whatever. I've seen people have more patience for that person than somebody who actually got hurt. Like he wanted to hurt himself, you know? So I just think it's insane. And I think I tweeted this out. I'm gonna buy a jersey for the first time in a long time. I used to buy a lot of jerseys. I'll probably stop buying them again because it's just me. I don't care about if it's out of style or not. I haven't bought a jersey in a while though, but the first one I'm gonna buy is Derrick Rose number 25 jersey, and I might get it in alternate and home and away. You know, that's just Chicago, man. I'm gonna ride that way as far as from my fandom. Now, how I cover a sport is different. If Rose comes out and I'm covering a specific game he's playing and he shoots 4 for 20, I'm gonna say Rose was miserable today. But as far as from my fandom, which all sports writers are fans, yeah, we're gonna ride with Rose. So I'm gonna root for Rose. All right, next question comes from Ian Shield Boss Tatum. He got the longest name in Ask FP history, but he says, if you could play any sport professionally and you had all the necessary skills, which would you choose? I really dig this question. I do. I had to answer this in two ways. If I'm just thinking about the financial aspect of it and longevity, then it would be a cross between baseball and golf. And more than likely, it'd probably be golf. Because you want to talk about a sport that if you actually, like you said, had the necessary skills. So I don't got the necessary skills to be a golfer, a professional golfer. The average salaries for these guys, man, on the tour for the amount of tournaments that they work. Now, obviously, there's constant practice in between the tournaments. I mean, these guys have to play. They have to work on their craft in a ridiculous way. But we're looking at people who can play the game professionally from the time they're 20 to 21 into their 50s and still taking home really nice paydays, man. And we're talking about not putting hardly any stress on your body physically. Yeah, I know that Tiger has a bad back, right? But the way Tiger's body is, I think Tiger's in a much better position physically to be able to enjoy his later life than a guy in the NFL, a guy in the NHL, and even probably a guy in the NBA, to be totally honest. Baseball is another sport. The average salary is extremely high. And unless you're a pitcher, you probably are not going to put a lot of wear and tear on your body. The pitchers, obviously, with the elbows and shoulder problems and arm problems, that's a risk. But, now if we're just talking about my level of enjoyment and I don't have to worry about, and I'm not thinking about, how my body's going to hold up, it probably would be basketball or boxing. Because I love you guys know I love all sports, but basketball is, I'm pretty decent at the game. I enjoy playing it, and I don't know, it's just something about basketball. It feels great. And boxing is something that I've always enjoyed. It's crazy because I'm not like a maniac in it so much anymore, but I enjoy fighting. Like, I enjoy the strategy of it. Like, if you could fight and nobody had to get hurt, like, I know this sounds crazy, but if I could fight and nobody had to get hurt, oh my God, that's just figuring out how to take another person apart with all you have is your own hands and feet or whatever. That's pretty fascinating to me. So that would be it. I couldn't give just one, but that would be it. All right, the next question comes from Vince Delgado, and Vince Delgado says, what do you make of the whole Jimmy trade situation? Did Tibbs play the Bulls, and should we have traded him? I think that there was a legitimate desire by Thibodeau with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Danny Ainge and Boston Celtics to acquire Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is one of the best shooting guards in the NBA. But I think that Thibodeau was like, you are not winning this trade. So if we trade any assets, you're not going to win this trade. And they felt that, are we willing to part with Ricky Rubio? Absolutely, because we know who Ricky Rubio is. He's as good as he's going to be. He's not going to be a superstar. This is what here. This is who you want. You got him. But Zach LaVine is still very young, and he still has the ability to become a superstar. So with that said, do you want to risk giving up a guy who could become a superstar for the team that you just got fired by? So that's a really big deal, right? You got to really think about that from Thibodeau's standpoint. Is that what you wanted to do? And obviously that was not what he wanted to do, which is the reason why that was the sticking point in the deal. So for people who don't know, reportedly, the sticking point in the deal and the reason why it didn't get made was because the Bulls wanted the Timberwolves to include Zach LaVine with the number 5 pick, in the draft. So it would have been Chris Dunn, who ended up going number 5, and Zach LaVine for Jimmy Butler, and they might have thrown in like Gorgui Dieng or whatever. And I'm not mad at the Bulls, because there's no way in the world I would have did that trade for Ricky Rubio. There's no way at all. But if the Bulls would have traded Jimmy Butler for Chris Dunn and Zach LaVine, I would have said, good job. And here's the reason why. People say, you don't trade. Why are you trading your best player? It doesn't help you to be the best player on a team that is not good enough. I don't care. So, okay, Jahlil Okafor is the best player for the 76ers, and they're horrible. So do you just not trade Jahlil Okafor? That you don't hold on to guys unless you think that guy can take you to a championship. And I don't think that Jimmy Butler right now has the ability to take a team to a championship. He's 26 years old. I give him the next 1 or 2 years is the prime of these. Last year, the next year, and the year after that is the prime of Jimmy's career. The Bulls need a lot of assistance to put with him if they have any hopes of trying to win a championship and having him being a part of it. Okay. I feel like the worst place to be in the NBA is in a place where you're good enough to threaten for the playoffs, making it some years, not making it other years. That's the worst place to be. You either want to be a serious contender or you want to be completely horrible, which is why teams tank. Because when you're at the place where the Bulls are, getting the 14th pick and the 10th pick and the 12th pick and the 16th pick, you're not, 9 times out of 10, you're never going to get an option to get a player who is good enough to change your franchise around. Those guys are drafted usually in the top 5. Every once in a while, you hit a lick, you know, and you get a guy at 14, you get a guy at 15, you get a guy at 17, but that's a rarity. That's a rarity. That does not usually happen. Then some people say, oh, but what about free agency? Well, what about free agency? Nobody signs with the Bulls. Nobody comes to play with the Bulls. It just happened. The Bulls are one of the most turned down major market teams in free agency that there is. Okay. So the Bulls can't depend on that, you know. So keeping Jimmy this year, what that tells me is that the Bulls are probably going to win somewhere between 35 to 40 games, and that might even be high. You might probably need to say 30 to 40 games, and they're going to miss the playoffs or maybe barely squeak in, not going to be a serious contender, and they're not going to get a really good draft pick. What good does that do? You know, I would rather start over with a backcourt of Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine. You still got Doug McDermott out there. You still got Mirotic. You still got Portis. And you still have Robin Lopez. That starting 5 excites me for the future. You know, that team excites me for the future because they can grow together. We can see what happens. Yeah, they may not make the playoffs, but you get a better, more than likely going to probably get a better lottery pick. And also, they're all young, and they can mesh in Hoiberg's system, so you can see what you have from Hoiberg. Do you need to let him go or not? So that's my thought on that. But, you know, next question comes from my man, Jared Young. And Jared Young says, do you think the Bucks may have reached for Thon Maker? Here's the thing. Was number 10 high for Thon Maker? Yes. Number 10 was pretty high. But here's the other thing. If that's the guy you wanted, right? If that's the guy that you wanted, then you have to go after the guy that you want. Because so people are saying reach. Okay, so if that's really who they wanted, did they have another option to get him later? Could they have traded back? And I don't think that was really a realistic option to trade back. I think that they took Thon Maker when they had to take Thon Maker because that's when their pick came up. It was too much of a gamble to try to trade back and hope he's there, because you really don't really know for sure which teams have serious interest in which players. So maybe you move back 3 or 4 picks and you miss out on your guy. If that is your guy and you believe in what your scouts have told you, if you believe in what your personnel people have told you about this particular player, you got to go get him when you have an opportunity to get him. And the Bucks had 1 pick in the first round, and they went for it. And so we'll see what happens. You know, people will call him crazy if he doesn't pan out, but if he pans out, then they're geniuses. So we'll see. The next question also comes from Jared Young, and Jared Young says, out of Noel, Okafor, and Embiid, who should the Philadelphia 76ers keep? Me personally, I don't think that either of those 3 guys should be untouchable, right? But if I had to pick, the guy I would keep would be Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel Jahlil Okafor, I totally believe in. I think that this guy is going to be an awesome low post scorer. But the way that the game is being played currently, it's difficult for a guy like him to have success against certain matchups. And I'd hate to have a guy who is as much a part of my team most games to have like an entire series where he's almost like a non-factor. And that would scare me about Okafor. So for that reason, and you'll see this, if an Al Jefferson team makes it deep into the playoffs, you're going to see a situation where it's really tough for Al. Like if Al Jefferson was playing against the Golden State Warriors, right? It's going to be real tough for Al Jefferson to not be taken advantage of on the defensive end. Imagine if the Golden State Warriors constantly take whichever man that Al Jefferson is guarding, and they consistently put him in pick and roll. And you have to find out or make a decision if you're going to switch. You can't switch, because if you get a situation where Jefferson ends up one-on-one on Steph Curry, there is no way in the world he can do the job similar to what Tristan Thompson did in most of the series and what Kevin Love did for the one crucial possession at the end of the game. So that's the problem with guys like Okafor and Al Jefferson. Joel Embiid, I think, is an amazing athlete and talent, but he's had a ton of injuries, and I really am not sure if this dude loves basketball, and that scares me. It always scares you, and big guys, for whatever reason, tend to have that thing. And I'm not calling him Andrew Bynum, but the floating in and out thing, you know. Nerlens Noel, on the other hand, has had an injury, but this guy loves to play the game. He plays hard. He's long. He's athletic. He's never going to be a great offensive player, but he can be a big-time shot blocker, rebounder, defensive player, and I think he's the safest of the three. Let's see. What do we got next? We got Jared Young again, and Jared Young on this one says, did Danny Ainge make the right choice to draft Jaylen Brown with the number 3 pick? I don't believe so. For me personally, the third best player in this draft was Chris Dunn. I understand that Boston has a young point guard, a young guard in Marcus Smart. I understand they got Avery Bradley, even though I know that they were willing to deal him, or there was talk about that. But I just don't know about Jaylen Brown. I really don't. He's very athletic, physically strong, but he can barely handle. He's not a good shooter. And I don't think he has an attitude problem, but he's what you would call, I would say, an alternative thinker. And sometimes guys with that type of personality don't play well in a team sport. It doesn't work as well. So I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but it could be. And I just think Chris Dunn is an absolute beast. I think he plays hard. I think he's hungry. I think he understands what it's like to, come from nothing, and that type of thing shapes your character and the way you approach the game, And I think that this dude is going to be one of the better point guards in the NBA over the next 5 to 8 years, barring some sort of injury. I think that highly of him, and I think that was the pick Boston should have made. When you got really good players, I think you don't necessarily worry about the position, so to speak. That'll work itself out. You move guys as you need to move them. But Dunn is the truth, and I think that was the right pick for them to make. But we'll see what happens with Jaylen Brown. Next up, I got Von Respa Jr. And Von Respa Jr. says, what years would you say were the Undertaker's prime? I would say the late 2000s were his prime for me, even though he had been in the game a long, long time by that time. But I thought those feuds with Shawn Michaels, that really I thought it just elevated him even more. I thought that was like his best in-ring work. So he was full out legend, with all the clout and all the everything, but still young enough to do really good work in the ring and have some really memorable matches. So that the late 2000s is what I would say is what you should call vintage Undertaker. Next question comes from Derrick Dynasty, and Derrick says, why do you think there aren't that many black or minority playable main characters in games? Now, obviously, Derrick's talking about non-sports games for the most part. Or one thing you could say, though, Derrick, on the other side of that, I've heard a lot of people complain about NBA 2K because all of their characters for my career are African American, and you got a lot of people that play 2K who are all of all different races, and they're like, well, I saw a guy say, well, I'm Asian, and I'd like the option to be able to make my family Asian or make, have a different voice or whatever, to match my character. And I totally dig that. I understand. I feel you. I think that makes total sense. But I think, Derrick, what you're talking about is the Uncharted's of the world, the God of Wars and all that. And honestly, man, it really is probably just as simple as it sounds. It's still a subtle amount. There's some of it's not subtle, but this particular aspect of it is, I think it's still a little bit of subtle racism, man, because, and I don't even think it's necessarily a conscious thing. You know, when people go looking for the action hero in a movie, it's very similar to the way you stylize a action character in a video game. You're looking for generally a tall, athletically built white guy with blonde or brown hair. That's usually the way it goes. And some grizzled look with a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow on them. And, you know, and that's just the way people think, you know. It would take a conscious effort for someone to say, you know what, we're gonna cast a black man in this role, or you know what, we're gonna cast an Asian guy in this role. You know what, here's what I think is even less likely to be seen, and I really think is really a shame. When, if ever, have we seen a Hispanic lead guy? And check this out, not let the entire joint, the entire movie, or the entire game be set in a quote unquote Hispanic-like environment. Anytime it seems like a movie or a video game has a Hispanic lead, Hispanic character, he is engulfed in what is like supposedly this big time Spanish environment or culture. And that's cool, but how come he can't just be the lead character in a game that doesn't necessarily have to do with being in Mexico or being in some other Spanish, in another Spanish country of some sort? You know, same thing with an African American character. You know, I think the only game I can think about off the top of my head that had like African American lead character, and he was the only guy, is Crackdown. I can't think of another one. If somebody else can think of one, absolutely hit the comment section. But that's the only one I can think of. So I think that would be awesome, man. You know, I think it would be awesome. And you know what I think would make it even more awesome? If we didn't have to wait for an all black development company to make the point of saying, you know what, all of our games gonna have an African American lead character. It would be really cool if just a company just says, oh, you know what, this game here is gonna have an African American lead character. Just it. That's bam. That's just it. That's just what happens. It wasn't done as some initiative. They just chose that. You know, that would be awesome. I don't know how realistic that is, but it would be awesome. All right, the next question is from Ian Chio Boss Tatum again. And he got another what if question. And here says, if you could go anywhere on vacation and everything was taken care of, where would you go and what would you do? Now, I'm sorry, I got to give y'all the 2 answer thing again. Now, if we was talking about going somewhere with my wife, then that would be somewhere in the Caribbean. You know, I would maybe, you know, I'll say something specific. I'd love to go to, I've never been to Jamaica. If I could go to Jamaica, everything's taken care of, the whole 9, that's what I would love to. I'm going to take my wife there. That's gonna happen. I haven't done it yet, but that's gonna happen. So that would be as far as for my wife. But as far as me and maybe some friends of mine and stuff like that, I've had this. Me and my cousin used to talk about this, and my cousin's passed away. Rest in peace to my cousin Rob. That was my guy. Well, it's really not right, my cousin. He was really like my brother. But we used to talk about this all the time, and we would say that we wanted to go on this trip to all of the major sports Hall of Fames. So we would go, you know, Canton for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, go to Cooperstown for the Baseball Hall of Fame, go to Springfield, Mass for the Basketball Hall of Fame. And we wanted to just have this whole planned out thing. And we was like, man, you know, it's gonna cost a good grip to do this. But that is still a vacation that I want to take. I'll probably have to take that with my son, my youngest son, but maybe my older, I don't know. But but that's still a vacation that I just would love to take. I think that would just be awesome. I think my wife would be pretty bored. She might the first about 20 minutes, be like, oh, look, that's nice. Okay. Oh boy. And that would be about that would go. So, to make it full out, I need somebody there just geeking is just as much as I'm geeking. All right. So what do we got next? We got Weston Flores, and Weston Flores says, who was your favorite and least favorite athlete to interview, including pro wrestlers? I have said this before, and I think you guys may have heard me say it. I have never interviewed a wrestler who wasn't pleasant, and I have interviewed tons of them. And I'm talking about Xavier Woods, Daniel Bryan twice, John Cena, Dean Ambrose, Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, oh man, Big E Langston, all kinds of people, right? And all of them have been nice. All of them, right? So I don't know, man. As far as best, John Cena is definitely in there. Nice as that dude is so nice. Like, he is just a really nice guy, right? Daniel Bryan's super nice. But if we go out of the realm of wrestling, Cam Newton, that was so fun because it was really like I was just talking to some dude that I knew, that's the way it felt. Damian Lillard was similar. Another interview I had that was really cool. Actually, this is far and away the best interview I've ever had in person, because a lot of my interviews have been conducted over the phone. But in person, I interviewed Brandon Phillips of the Cincinnati Reds, and it's actually on my channel. You want to talk about talking to somebody who it just felt like I was just talking to a dude that I knew, I worked with, or something. It was the rapport there was just bang, 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 and it was funny because the people who were there present watching the interview, they were stunned because they were looking like, why are y'all vibing so easy like this? Because Brandon had gotten a somewhat bad, reputation for dealing with the media. He's insulted some cats and stuff. So, but he and I, it was just going right, and I thought it was a really good interview. The worst interview I ever had is really pretty easy. I interviewed Russell Wilson of Seattle Seahawks, and I like Russell Wilson, but it was the most robotic, non-compelling thing ever, right? It was supposed to be an interview for the Xbox One Smart Glass app or something to that effect, where you could look on Madden and look at some plays or whatever. But, obviously when we do these interviews, yeah, we're going to talk about that product, but we're also going to talk to the athlete about whatever's going on. Well, Russell had decided that he wasn't going to talk about nothing but this smart glass. So I didn't know that. Nobody had made me aware of that. So I'm asking him these questions, and every question I ask him, he goes, yeah, the smart glass app. So I'm like, huh? At first I thought he didn't hear me. I really did. So I said, oh, I'm gonna ask him again. And every time he said, yeah, and he would like completely no sell the question. And just, so I don't know, maybe it was a misunderstanding or something. I don't have any idea what it was, but it was rough. And I didn't use any of the sound bites. I didn't use any of it because I think I might have used one or two sentences or something, but it was nothing there to use. So that was really rough. So I would say easily that was the worst one. All right, what do we got here? We got another one from Trash Boat 2K, and Trash Boat 2K says, why doesn't Deontay Wilder have a huge fan base in America? I still think that what's happening right now is the heavyweight division still has to be legitimized. Wilder has to beat or knock somebody out who the matchup itself compels people. He hasn't faced anybody that the matchup is compelling. There are 2 fights on the horizon that could do that for him. Anthony Joshua, which both of those guys are signed to Showtime, that's a big time fight because Deontay's only 30, Joshua's 26. They're both undefeated. They both knock out everybody. Between them, Deontay's had 1 fight. I think Deontay is 36-0 with 35 knockouts. And I think Anthony Joshua is 17-0 with 17 knockouts. And that Deontay's 6'7", Anthony Joshua is 6'6". They are humongous, big-time power fighters. That's going to compel people, right? But even more than that, now this is not a better fight, but we're talking about commercial appeal and we're talking about blowing him up in America. Even more than that is Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury. The reason why that fight could blow Deontay up is because Tyson Fury has the mouthpiece. He is going to be the villain. He doesn't care about being the villain. He's going to say horrible, crazy things that are going to make people want to see him get knocked out. Or if he has fans, they're going to stay with him. Either way, people are going to come and check it out. And if it's in the United States, when they see, and other than Tyson Fury, 6'9", right? So here's this big, humongous guy from Britain who's talking all this crazy stuff that he talks. When American media really gets a hold of this guy fighting an American heavyweight champion, it's going to be a big deal. So those 2 things can change it. But as of right now, Deontay hasn't beat the people, and he's also from down south. And he doesn't have that slickness, that swag. You know, he's not like a goof or a nerd, but he just, you know, a public kind of stigmatizes guys from down south. It's, you know, it kind of blow him off his country, even though they won't say it. That's what happens. And because if Deontay Wilder was from New York or from Los Angeles, he'd already be a superstar. But because he's from Alabama, he doesn't get the same love. And that's not right, but it is what it is. All right, so what we got next? We got another one from Trash Boat 2K, and Trash Boat 2K is staying boxing, and he says, do you think that we will see more top Al Heyman fighters facing each other on PBC? And obviously this is in regards to the awesome fight that we saw on Saturday night between Keith One Time Thurman and Showtime Sean Porter. And I don't care what anybody says. If you didn't see that fight, don't listen to the haters. That fight was amazing. It was off the meter. You understand me? It was one of the best fights I've seen in a long time, and I watch a ton of fights, right? And I do think that we'll see more top guys fighting. I think Al Heyman is really feeling some pressure from Top Rank Boxing because Top Rank seems to be putting on better fights. Just totally honest. And now he knows that, okay, just having it on free TV is not really necessarily going to do it enough. I got to bring the fights because the people are starting to complain about not seeing the fights. And Thurman and Porter was such a success on network television. It behooves Premier Boxing Champions to deliver more of that. They can pull back in a minute, but I would say a next 4 or 5 major dates that they have need to be good fights. And so I do think, yes, we'll see more of that. All right, we got one more question, and it comes from Clark Kent Allen. And Clark Kent Allen says, is it time for Ronda Rousey to return to the octagon? My opinion, I don't think Ronda should ever come back. I don't think that she wants to. I really don't think she wants to. I think she doesn't want it to end the way it ended, but I don't think her heart is really in the sport anymore. Ronda is obviously a good fighter, and I'm not trying to take anything away from her skill-wise. But what we see with Ronda right now, to me, is almost like the bully effect. If anybody's ever seen or been around a bully, you pop the bully in the mouth, and nobody's afraid of the bully anymore. And now you really kind of uncover that all along, the bully was this scared person who was really kind of pulling. They were really kind of keeping up a charade the whole time, that they were tougher and more and this impenetrable person, and when they really weren't that. And I think that's what we see with Ronda. That's why this loss has done what it's done to her, you know, keeping her away from the you know, the limelight altogether, and just, you know, just totally just not ready to come back and compete. And once I think you fall that far away, and a little bit to Joe Rogan's point, when she had, because she has so many other options, I think it's dangerous for her to get back into the octagon. I think the same thing is going to happen, and it may not even have to be a fighter as good as Holly Holm, but I guarantee you this, that when the UFC puts her back in the octagon, it's not going to be against, it's going to be against somebody that they can maximize as much money as they can off of her appearance, unless they truly know in their heart that she's not ready. And then they might just have to try to capitalize off it being Ronda coming back, because she's still one of the, you know, one of the three biggest names in MMA if you include Brock Lesnar. It's her, Brock, and Conor McGregor. So I don't think she should come back at all, period, because I just don't think she'll ever be able to come back the way she was. So that's all I got for you with Ask FP today. I appreciate you watching. As always, God bless. Peace.